Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the show where we normally discuss the Indiana Jones films 1 minute at a time. I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Pete Mubbert.
Gerald Christopher Marcus Porter.
And today on this special bonus episode, we have a guest who has written extensively about pop culture and the role it has played in his life, which is something we can all relate to listening to this show. He's the author of Catching Bullets, Memoirs of a Bond Fan, and his new book is Watching Skies, Star Wars, Spielberg, and Us. That sounds appropriate for this show to me. Welcome to the show, Mark O'Connell.
Hello, guys. Hello. I'm glad we're finally hooked up and talking at long last.
Yes, it's been a long time in the making. We were first talking to try to get you on Last Crusade, and that didn't work.
Yes.
But now here we are.
They've done two more Indiana Jones films since, I'm sure, but
it seems like it. Yeah. But now you get your whole episode all to yourself.
Oh,
so
bless.
It worked out.
Cool. Appreciate
it's all
it.
part of your plan.
I feel like we're gonna have a game of Go Fish with childhood memories.
Oh, absolutely.
Exactly.
I'm already dressed and ready.
Well, that's one of the things that kind of was interesting about your book is I approach these, and I think a lot of people do these movies from the perspective of an American kid growing up with BMX bikes and video games and everything. And I thought it was interesting because we have a lot of listeners who aren't in the States. And I know you come to this from a very different perspective. And it was fun reading about how you came to love these movies too.
Yeah, well, I mean, I came to love America before I knew much about my own country. I actually sort of still stand by that. You know, I follow American politics for all of my sins at the moment more than I keep completely up to date with British politics. But yeah, as a kid back then, you know, Britain, and it still can be, it was a bit of a grey 3 days a week, 3 TV channels, 2 flavors of crisps kind of world. So, you know, even in our summer holidays, where we would just sit and would watch Battle of the Planets and The Fall Guy and all those sort of imported shows. We were watching Heart to Heart and A-Team, sort of thinking, oh my God, look at the colour. Look at the sun. Look at they've got, you know, and I say this a lot in the book as well, but it was just things like the refrigerators you had. You know, we just had these little sort of like white coffins that you'd put a bit of ham and a bottle of milk in, but you had like, they were like soft, whatever the phrase is, those sort of Egyptian tubes of milk and bread and beer and
yeah.
So
we have so many different kinds of crisps. We had to get refrigerators.
Yeah. Well, you got 3 kinds of crisps. You know, that's globalization for you. But we just, you know, I just fell in love with America. You know, particularly California and New York. Those 2 big co-stars of so many movies. So that's sort of where it came from. And then I thought it might be a good idea to do a book looking at the British perspective through that American filter. Because when I did my last book, Catching Bullets, which is predominantly about the James Bond movies, it was very much from a British perspective, looking at British-based movies. So I thought I wanted to do the flip of that with all of Spielberg's output.
Yeah.
What's amazing about that is reading the book. It's so steeped in, I mean, you know, you're writing about America a lot, but you know, your experience is from England, but there's so much overlap. Like I related to so much in your book. You've got that beautiful description of, as a kid, just looking at all the boxes in the video store that you couldn't rent. You couldn't rent the movies because they were like R-rated or PG-13. Well, not quite PG-13 then, but they like, I don't know, House and Amityville Horror and all these things and stuff. Like, oh, I looked at the exact same boxes. That's incredible. I mean, I was able to rent them, but you know, still they were there, and I would just like eyeball them, and there's so much overlap with the experience.
Oh, absolutely. I can still see that National Lampoon's Vacation and the European Vacation one, where they had this sort of Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, real buff. I remember just being obsessed by that cover, looking at it, going, "What is?" because when you're 9 years old and don't really know about American comedy and Chevy Chase movies, you're sort of, what is that film? Is that like some Roman epic where they've got sandals and a station wagon? What is it? And then the ones for House and all of that VHS poster art is it gets so talked about, but for very good reason, because we didn't have to watch the movies, but we could see those titles and they just sort of seeped into our heads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I just got to say, I didn't know that Cleveland was part of the UK. Just going back to your earlier description.
I think there's some weird exchange of spices back in the 18th century.
The way, just having two types of crisp and no color.
Oh, is that Cleveland? No, come on, no, everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to hear that there was a little bit of Britain and America.
If we can stop on this, I mean, somebody mentioned House.
Yeah.
As a movie. And I haven't thought about that. Now, I think, Tommy, you and I rented that, probably 37 years ago.
Something depressing like that, yeah.
It was the one, you talk about the VHS poster art that had the monster's hand on the doorbell, but it had been severed.
Yeah, it's like a zombie hand or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not the TV show House, and it's not. I think there are like 3 movies called House that are not House, that are not this House. This is like the, sort of comedy horror movie with like William Catt was in it, right?
Oh, I can't remember. I might have seen the first one. But it was always House 3 or Porky's 3. Porky's was another one where that was always on the plastic carousel in our video store. And these films that I have never seen Porky's 3 to this day. I've seen the first one, but those films just sear onto our minds. I don't know what that is, because I don't think. Well, maybe there's some kids looking at films they can't possibly watch and they'll remember them in 40 years' time. But I'm not so sure.
Yeah, we're so inundated with information about everything now. There's very little mystery anymore. Like when we were kids, there was so much. Like you'd see a poster or a picture of something, you'd be like, "Wow!" And you go home and imagine it for weeks.
Yes,
there'd be no place else to find information about it.
Well, also now, like if there's a movie that you're quote not supposed to be watching, you could easily just befriend the class nerd and go over to his house and be like, "Hey, can you rip this off the internet and we can all watch it?"
Right.
And tomorrow I'll pretend I'm your friend.
Yeah, I had the same with a guy at school who had a rogue VHS copy of Police Academy 5, Assignment Miami Beach. And I remember being really excited the day it was my turn to borrow it. It was a Monday afternoon. I remember getting it off him, but I took it home and it wouldn't play. You're like, because my video player was like an altar of heaven to me, and I'm like, I don't think this VHS is going to be good for it. So I took it out, and I was devastated that I didn't see Assignment Miami Beach at the time. I have seen it since and didn't know why I was so worried about seeing it quickly.
Right.
I remember those early days though, like you'd leave the movie, because we didn't have a VCR for a while, and you'd leave the video store and you'd have that big suitcase that had the actual VCR in it that you'd rent.
Yeah. It was like a black box from some Boeing 747.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to shoehorn terribly here, but one of the films I think that actually really advanced and progressed the idea of movie poster art is Raiders, because that whole swagger, that matinee swagger, and you could look at the poster for Lampoon, the first National Lampoon's Vacation. There are echoes of what Richard Amsel did with that matinee swagger and sense of adventure, and then it just seeped into all sorts of genres and B movies, Z movies. You could possibly trace the DNA back of poster art. Certainly, Indiana Jones gave it a big push.
Yeah.
Was there a time when Raiders comes out, you see the poster? Did you have a moment where you had to look up what the word Raider meant?
Possibly. To be honest, I was probably looking up the word Ark, because I'm like, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is this like the animals 2x2? Is this a thing?
Exactly what I thought.
What sort of? Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, Raiders. Yeah, possibly.
Like, I mean, it's not Pirates of the Lost Ark.
No,
which
right.
we would have understood immediately. Yeah, Adventures. Yeah, exactly. Brigands of the Lost Ark.
I get that. Yeah. I mean, there's loads of film titles, like extraterrestrial for ET. I'm like,
oh sure.
I used to think with extraterrestrial is there more terrestrial? Is it? Can you have a terrestrial and then an extraterrestrial? It's just a bit supersized. I remember thinking, why is he extraterrestrial? And then later you sort of realize what these words mean.
And you were at an age, so you didn't see Raiders until it was on VHS.
No,
right?
I missed it at the cinema. I was born in 1975, so I could have seen it. I would have been a very slightly scared 5.5-year-old upon initial theatrical release. But I saw it in the sort of autumn, December of '84. I remember we rented it out, and then it was. But the whole thing about renting a video out, you had to give them back, and that was the sort of that was the sadness in the brilliance.
Right.
So I remember we got our video player, our first ever video VCR, Hitachi made. I can see it now, grey with a front-loading little letterbox flap. And I remember buying. In fact, I asked for it for Christmas. I asked for blank VHS tapes. That was how bizarre times were back then. You'd ask for a blank tape to tape movies off. And I remember stood over our telly that was all plugged in and plumbed in, and nervously punching out the ad breaks or the commercial breaks because I was conscious that my tape might not have enough space to get it all. I'm like, well, if there's 3 minutes, and you would sit. It was like I remember sitting with like this almost sweat coming off my brow, like one of those sort of NASA Houston guys with the cigarettes sort of smoking. I'm going like Gene Kranz, like, my God, please record, please, is this working? Because you couldn't tell. I mean, I don't know. I would sometimes, when there was an ad break, I'd go back and check it recorded properly, very, very quickly, then set it up, pause, and then come in. But yeah, '84, I saw Raiders on TV, and it was at the time, and I think it's still a beautiful piece of cinema and an amazingly paced film. Its precision, the pace and precision of Raiders is often unsurpassed. But back then they were not widescreen. They would be pan and scans. They would be boxed and chopped, and all the gory, all the obvious beats of gore were all cut out. But even when you're sort of 9 years old, it just did not matter. It didn't matter.
Yeah. Wait, you mentioned punching the little tabs. Was that the SP, LP, like XP, or
you did have that? But
long play.
Yeah, I remember reading early on that long play would be not as good quality, and even from a young age, and I still am now. I'm a real high definition, best image, best. I'm a real sort of stickler for that. But yeah, we had like 2-hour tapes as well. I remember the one I had was I could see it was a white Sony blank tape with orange striped sort of detail. It's stupid what you remember.
Awesome.
And I watched that over and over. And I remember the VHS tapes, the blank ones, you would get like a little sticker sheet, and you'd have A to Z. And if you collected enough of them, you could maybe have enough letters. It was like Scrabble.
Wow.
And like suddenly, I'm like an O. I've run out of O's. I'm going to have to use a 0, but it doesn't look right. But it's that was I'm saying this all out loud, but it's group therapy. We're all here for the same good.
It is. You're in a safe place.
Yeah.
I did not worry at all about. I knew that the quality was worse if you did it on SLP, whatever, the long version, but I didn't care because I just had like a tape of like. I fit Tootsie, War Games, and Bill Cosby himself on one tape.
Wow, that's a night in, especially now.
Creep Show.
That's a night in.
Yeah. It's like, I don't care. I got all these movies. They look like crud. It looks like I'm watching it through mud, but it's great.
And we used to have this...
your other choice was playing with rocks.
With rock,
then, you didn't have. It's like that's why you didn't care if Tootsie was blurry. It was like a melted Tootsie.
What am I gonna do? Play the ET Atari game?
Get your spade and start digging. But I remember with Temple of Doom, that was on Christmas Day '87 on BBC One, and BBC One has no commercial breaks. And I was like, yes, I can just tape it in its purity, not realizing that it was still a 4:3 cropped travesty, and all the gory beats had been cut out because it was sort of put on. It was literally put on after the Queen's speech, Christmas Day '87. But I was just glad that I could actually sit back and watch it and not have that nervous punching out the commercials thing.
That's awesome.
And now, if I ever find a VHS tape up in the attic, or if I play one, which isn't often. But I'm like, oh, why did I punch out the commercials? Because they would be just gold to watch now. For
they'd be the best part.
For grocery chains and things we don't have, or like, get this cordless phone, only $500 from your local from your local store.
You can walk 10 feet around your house.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My version of my original copy of Star Wars was just copied off of CBS on TV when they first showed it, and so when I watch regular Star Wars now, I still feel the commercial breaks.
Yes, the beats.
Like when the sandcrawler's going over the hill, I'm like, oh, it's fading away to a commercial for like C-3PO's cereal or something.
Oh, yeah. And we used to have a little thing on British telly. I think it's still there sometimes. It's like a little stamp-shaped rectangle in the top right-hand corner, and it sort of shimmers. And that was always the ad break is coming. And I don't know what it was there for. Wow. It's probably some broadcasting thing they didn't care that the audiences would see. So that would always be because my mum would always say, how do you know the adverts are coming? I'm like, I have my ways, mother. I have my ways. And that little thing up there is the thing. So I don't know about you, but sometimes you'd have to tape a movie whilst your parents were watching another channel. So imagine punching out the channel, punching out the commercials when you're not actually watching it. And my parents would go crazy at me because they'd be watching some sort of Jane Austen drama or something worthy and important. And I'd be like trying to punch out the ads on, I don't know, Police Academy 2 on the other side.
I remember that was like the height of technology. Like you can record something on another channel that you're not
and watch it whenever you want.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, only just recently, and this is terrible to admit, but it is Britain, on our BBC channels, they've only just installed this option where a little green dot, say if you're 10 minutes late, a green dot appears and goes, do you want to watch from the beginning? And it is like sorcery. This is like Dragon. This is like Lady Hawk. I'm like, what is this? Go back in time. And you try showing parents as well, like, because my parents will sometimes watch iPlayer, which is our BBC catch-up channel, and I'm saying you don't have to watch it live. You can watch that Sunday night show Tuesday night. And they're like, what? Why? It won't play. It's not on that night. I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. So you are obviously, you've written a whole book about James Bond. You're a massive James Bond fan. And it's very hard to talk about Indiana Jones without bringing in James Bond at some point, which bothers Jerry a lot because he doesn't like the connection, which I kind of understand. But were you in '89 when Last Crusade was coming out? Were you already a huge Bond fan, and so your head exploded when you heard that Sean Connery was going to be in it?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. I was my Bond entry point was actually Octopussy in '83, where I was dragged kicking and screaming to see it because I wanted to see Return of the Jedi again. But my dad said, no, we're going to see this film that I hadn't heard of, starring actors I hadn't really heard of. And that made perfect sense, though, because my grandfather, his father, had worked on the movie and a lot of the Bonds. So suddenly, and I was just hooked from Octopussy onwards. It's a strange one to be pulled into. So no, by '89, I was 3 or 4 new releases down the line there, luckily. But yeah, the whole Connery thing was just, it was just great to see Connery in an Indiana Jones movie, and for Spielberg to sort of get that casting wish, because you guys know the folklore that Spielberg wanted to do a Bond movie, and George Lucas said, hang on, I may have a Bond movie sort of with this idea. And I'd still love Spielberg to direct a Bond movie, but I think he's slightly a different cut for that fit. But I mean, that '89 summer was such a crazy year of cinema as well, as you guys will know. Sort of
totally.
License to Kill, Lethal Weapon, Indiana Jones, The Burbs,
House 4.
House 4. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not a massive. I do love him in the role. My Bond is Roger Moore, which is the sort of the bit where everyone goes, okay, moving on.
I think you're not alone at all. I think that's maybe half of Bond fandom.
So had Roger Moore been in it playing, I don't know, Denham Elliott's slightly urbane brother from the South Coast, I would have been a little bit more excited than Connery, but Connery is great in it. And there are loads of Bond crossovers with the cast members and crew and all the big creative guys.
Is there, if you think about all the Indiana Jones movies, is there a scene in one of them where Indy is the most Bond-like?
Oh, of course, it's the opening 10 minutes of Temple of Doom, where he walks in with the white tux and the red carnation. If that's not the opening of Goldfinger, I don't know what is. But also,
you know, that was a softball question.
That was too easy. Even I've got a note here saying, "Remember the red carnations." Just looking at the wider structure of Indiana Jones, they are sometimes they've only been 4 films and 4 theatrical films at least, and they do take that Bond notion of come in late and leave early. So we're already at the tail end of another mission that we're possibly not going to see. And that's why actually in Crystal Skull, I was like, I want to see the opening that's got no connection to anything else. But obviously, I suppose Last Crusade actually is connected as well. But that whole idea of a little 10-minute overture is pure Bond. And I'm sure that's one of their references there.
It's amazing that you mentioned Roger Moore and Denham Elliott, because we had a really hard time some of us did, me especially, and Jerry, and sometimes Pete, with the treatment of Marcus in Last Crusade. That's sort of like the doddering, kind of clumsy goofball character, when in Raiders he was this very erudite, solid, intelligent dude. And I think more than once we said, couldn't Marcus, you could see a Roger Moore kind of character as Marcus, just sort of, being funny, but not by being a goofball. Like being just very dry and smooth and cool about stuff, and not really taking anything around him seriously, and just sort of surviving without getting rumpled at all throughout all this craziness.
Yeah,
that would have made sense.
Yeah, but then you'd be casting and you'd be adding another face to the mix. And I think one of the perhaps little glitches of Crystal Skull is that for me anyway, it's John Hurt's playing I can't remember the character's name, but it's not Abner Ravenwood, and you sort of feel it should have been. I know why it's not, and I just wonder if part of the joy of Last Crusade is these veterans have slightly been let out of school early, and they're going on the school trip, and they're going out in the field. But
I wouldn't replace Denham Elliott at all. I'm just saying that Denham Elliott could have played it that way. He could have been that kind of Roger Moore, kind of smooth.
Yeah, it was that point where he goes cross-eyed when he sees the guy with the gun before anyone else does, and I was like,
that's tough.
It's a cute moment, but it's because Denham Elliott often has this slight mystery to him, and he does it in Raiders as well. There's a slight, I wouldn't say creepy, but he's sort of, I think it's just his laid-back attitude. But then, yes, by Last Crusade, they slightly twist it for comedy's sake. But I don't mind it for that. I think it sort of has that, as I say, the veterans, it's sort of the Dirty Dozen retired motif.
Yeah, that's true. We should relax and just enjoy it.
Yes. But Daniel Craig has done Indiana Jones. There's not just because he was in one of the Indy Chronicles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. The TV show, you mean?
He was in that, as was, I think, Jeffrey Wright as well, who ended up being his Felix Leiter.
We've been criticized for actively avoiding that show so far.
That's okay. Everyone else did as well. So
yeah, exactly. We're not inventing anything.
No.
You said, now, is this being a safe place? Can you recommend how we're to approach that?
Good question.
By is there a way we can approach it by avoiding it?
Oh, I don't know. Just maybe for completist reasons, you might have to go there one day. But we'll see. I remember the vibe didn't feel great for me. But then I think if they'd done it today, I think technology let that show down a bit, because it was still sort of hankered in that 4x3 TV world, whereas television today, if you look at Star Trek Discovery, if they did an Indiana Jones series today, it would feel infinitely stronger and more of a cinematic beast, I feel.
Yeah. I bet you're right. They kind of know what they're doing now.
Yes. Yeah. Do you think we're going to get Indy 5? What's from your side of the fence?
They keep saying we are.
Yeah.
They've got the last we've heard as of this recording, they have is it Jake Kasdan? Larry Kasdan's son, who wrote Solo. He's working on a screenplay.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Everybody's supposedly on board. And he's not going to die, they say. Indy's not going to die, but it's probably his last go. Well, that's an excellent question for you, actually, as a Bond fan, because right now Daniel Craig is supposedly working on his last Bond movie, and there's all this talk about who should replace him. And do you think it's possible to replace Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, or do you think that we're just if this first generation of Indiana Jones fans can just relax a little bit, there might be somebody out there who could take it up?
It's difficult because if they do this fifth one, it's obviously going to be. I mean, it doesn't have to be the last. We're sort of assuming it would be, but then we thought Crystal Skull was going to be the absolute last one ever.
Yeah,
I think,
and even Last Crusade. I mean, that's why it was
of
Last
course,
Crusade.
yeah. But I feel, whereas perhaps Bond, you never see Bond. Well, you do a little bit, perhaps with Roger Moore and even Pierce Brosnan, but you never really see him become an older agent and an older guy. But with Indiana Jones, this potential fifth film, and even Crystal Skull, we've seen Harrison Ford really evolve, over 30, nearly 40 years in the role. So that would make it harder to replace him, because he's been there throughout it. He didn't just play it in his 40s and then pass it on to the next guy. But saying that, I'm the guy that thought you could never replace William Shatner as Kirk, or you could never replace that original Enterprise crew for any future movies. And then look, J.J. Abrams did Star Trek with Zoe Saldana and the crew there, and I thought it worked quite well. And suddenly, perhaps it's the character, not just the actor, because Bond has proved that. Bond has proved you can recast one of the most iconic roles. But I don't know. Could you recast Indiana Jones? I suspect yes. Disney have bought it for future reasons.
They are going to. That's
Well,
whether they do it successfully or not, we'll see. But that's an excellent point about the fact that I never really thought about that, because you always go to James Bond like, well, okay, a dozen guys have played James Bond and no one's freaked out about that. It's been fine. But you're right that Harrison Ford has played Indiana Jones throughout his life, basically. Throughout Indiana Jones's life. He's the younger, older, middle-aged, all versions of Indiana Jones. So it's not just like, new guy taking up the mantle halfway through or something.
And it was like with James Bond, it seems like it was kind of built in, or like Doctor Who. It's kind of like, it makes sense. But this is kind of this would be a brand new thing. This seems like it would be sort of earth-shattering.
But who would be the guy that could take it over that isn't called Chris Pratt? Well, I think he could be fine, but
exactly.
Who's out there?
Everybody first goes to Chris Pratt. He seems to be the front runner in a lot of people's minds, but I don't really see that at all.
Yeah, I think it'd be hilarious if it's Alden Solo. I can never say his surname, so I just call him Alden Solo.
Oh, right.
It'd be hilarious if
I think he'd be fine.
And then he'll do the remake with Witness, Mosquito Coast. It'll just be a bizarre thing. It'll probably be someone we haven't thought.
Is it possible that it could be Tom Hardy?
Oh, weird.
He's, for me, are you talking Bond or Indiana Jones, or both?
Well, I guess both. I don't know. I just like Tom Hardy.
Yeah, no, he's a great force
I really
nature. I find him just too bulky. Yeah, just physically too much of a bear. And Indiana Jones, for me, has never been. He's been wily. He's like a cheeky fox.
Yeah. Tom Hardy almost seems like he would fit the original vision that they were talking about, like Lucas and Spielberg and everything.
Yeah,
like they would talk about like a more rough, alcoholic, just bulldozer going through.
Yeah,
he doesn't have like the spark of like a Harrison Ford or something.
Yeah, it's
kind of grin and the wisecrack and the.
I actually feel if they were going to recast Indiana Jones for the movies, that it should almost be a TV face or someone that's just a little smaller in stature. I don't think it would be a big name, but then saying that, Harrison Ford was a massive A-list name, sort of 80, 81.
Yeah.
Sure.
But yeah, it's a tricky one. The thing that I really hope Indiana Jones 5 happens. Who knows if it finally will. But one of the things is, and you guys must have done it too, you sort of think, like, well, where will it be set? It'll probably be set 10, 12 years after Crystal Skull. So that brings us up to sort of 69, 70, 71. And I'm suddenly thinking that's the era of zombie movies, and really, what was the B movie sort of touchstones here? And I just had this silly notion. This is my author fanboy notion, but I would love to see Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones, just walking down a sidewalk in San Francisco in early 70s, late 60s, and it's all the hippie movement, and it's the stoner dudes, and we just see two guys walk past in plaid shirts, beards, and caps, and they may or may not be George Lucas and his mates, hanging out, his filmmaking mates.
Right.
I'd also like to see Indiana Jones perhaps go to Europe a bit and tap into Oxford University or some French story, but we'll see. I think it's a good thing they're doing it, and as long as he doesn't die, but I don't want him still to pretend he's 42 and suddenly just has a sore back. I don't want it to be I don't want it to feel like Raiders of the Lost Cocoon. It mustn't feel like that.
Wilford Brimley is Indiana Jones.
Yeah, sort of the Cocoon of Doom.
Yeah. Now, do you think, you're obviously a huge Spielberg fan and you've tracked his whole career and he's meant a lot to you as he means a lot to us, but do you worry at all, and this will be blasphemy to some people, but is it possible that given this point in his career, he's sort of, I don't want to say not the guy to do this, but is an action adventure, blockbuster, summer fun romp thing not really his thing anymore?
I absolutely disagree. I actually, because yes, I've tracked him and been a fan, and I will admit I became less of a ardent fan in those sort of, I'd say, Catch Me If You Can, the Terminal years, because those films were great and beautifully made, but they didn't have the concepts and the impact that Close Encounters or Jaws or Temple of Doom has. But I don't think it's just because I've done Watching Skies and gone back and immersed myself in all things Stephen, but I feel actually, as a director, as a filmmaker, he is on fire at the moment. I think The Post is one of his best films. It's certainly one of his top 10 movies of all time. And it's not just because of the politics that we can project onto what's happening now. It's that film is so skillfully told, with its production, with its camera movement, with its choices of frame, the editing choices. And then you look at Ready Player One, which, whatever anyone thinks of it, that did not come and I quite like it. I really liked it. I thought it was a great Saturday afternoon movie. But whatever you can level at Ready Player One, whatever criticisms you can throw at it, it is not a film made by a 71-year-old. There is such energy and sense of control and sense of technology. So actually, the idea of Spielberg doing Indy 5, I think, great. I think he's probably almost in a stronger place as a director than he was going into Crystal Skull. I mean, he's going to be doing West Side Story or some version of it, and that's a modern musical. That's a real physical statement, a real physical production. So I think coming off the back of West Side Story, Indy 5 could be in a really healthy place as a movie. And so to answer you, no, I think Spielberg's actually in a really interesting place. His use of camera is brilliant at the moment.
Yeah. And I should contradict my own question by pointing out, I thought Tintin, his, fully animated movie, was one of the best Indiana Jones movies, probably.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. I'll give you that, yeah.
For Indy 5, do you think they're going to carry a Mutt storyline?
It depends which art installation Shia LaBeouf is mounting at that time. I feel they may have got their fingers burnt with that motif, possibly.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I bring it up. Do you think we're going to see a little bit of a Jar Jar Binks thing?
Oh God!
Where he's just sort of like he's maybe mentioned or alluded to, but that he drifts into the weeds.
Well,
the background.
Well, I mean, he's an interesting character. So in sort of 57, he's this Marlon Brando, James Dean Wild One. But where did the Wild Ones go 10, 13 years later? Is he going to be some dropout stoner hippie? Then if he is, get Shia LaBeouf. The makeup's done. We'll save a fortune.
That'd be perfect.
But I'm not. The other Shia LaBeoufs are available without dissing him too much. The thing that slightly concerns me about possible Indy 5 is more Karen Allen. And I'm not a big hater of Crystal Skull. I think its central problem is that it spends so long hiding that it's a UFO B-movie with the Aztecs and the Conquistadors and John Hurt and all of that and the Mayan stuff. It spends so long hiding that it's a UFO movie. It doesn't have enough time to enjoy being a UFO movie because an indie UFO movie makes absolute crazy archaeological 50s sense. And one of the disappointments for me in Crystal Skull is the characterization of Marion Ravenwood. She goes from being this liquor downing, Tibetan bar owning badass boss to some slightly stoned, sort of confused campus wife. And I didn't understand. And she'd lost the spunk, the American phrase, not the British one. She'd lost the sense of fight and passion. And I really hope if they carry on, because they've got married, they're slightly tied to her. I hope they slightly break that out and just getting her sort of Tibetan feet again and being a bit of a rogue and someone that can slap along with the rest.
Yeah.
I would love Willie Scott to come back because I think that would just be that would just be a right. My go-to movie is always Temple of Doom, and I love that film, and I love
I love this. You got Willie Scott and Roger Moore.
Oh my God!
It's great. You just flying the flag.
Now you are in my 1984 summer head. Yeah, now you're there. Wow. Well, I had I was very lucky. About a year ago now, I was in a room. I went to the British London premiere of The Post, or I was invited, and
nice.
Someone said, come a bit early. I went, oh, why? You're coming to the drinks beforehand. And I went, oh, okay. So I go into this sort of makeshift VIP room, and it's my friend Paul, who works for the distributor. And we go in, and there's 2 security guards, 3 waiters clutching trays of wine, Steven Spielberg and Kate Capshaw. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And I was just like, whoa. And I don't get starstruck. I don't get tongue-tied. I don't get nervous because I'm fortunate to sort of move in different circles where you meet a lot of people and faces, and you get used to it a little bit. But I felt like the 7-year-old kid, and I said to my friend Paul, I don't know what the etiquette is. I want to go up to him and say hi and thank you, but I don't want to be sort of thrown out of the cinema. And then I clocked. I went, yeah, the lady sat next to him. Yeah, that's Kate Capshaw. Of course it is. Yeah, why wouldn't it be? He's here with his wife.
Right.
And I just suddenly remembered, and this is a major admission, although it's in the book, I remember phonetically learning Anything Goes in Mandarin, or trying to, and writing it down, pausing it and writing it down. And suddenly some of the lines came back to me, and I thought, can I go up to her and get away with this? But I knew that I would be so nervous, because I was nervous, that I would trip up and do something and say something weird. And in my head, I'd be Roger Moore, but actually I'd probably be George Lazenby. I would just sort of really confuse it. So actually, I had a line for Spielberg. I had 2. One was just thank you. And that's what I would have said, and what I will still say one day. But the other thing was, I'm glad your films are finally getting seen. But I just thought, no, that might not work. So I thought, I'll woo him with my British wit. And the same, because Meryl Streep was there as well, and she was right alongside me and Spielberg and Streep were talking, and they were talking about current politics and things. And I just thought, this is strange. It feels like I'm listening into a commentary of a film I haven't seen. And then you turn around and those 2 people are actually there. This is just bizarre. And then I had this urge to say to Streep, I'm so glad you're finally getting the roles. But I didn't. And in hindsight, I thought I could have put Love You on my eyelids and just done that in front of him, or done anything. But I just thought, I'm going to play with the karma gods here. I'm not going to go anywhere near him. I'm not going to be a pain. And then 2 months later, I was in another room with him as well, a different context.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like, I'm just playing the long karma game here. I'm going to be, I just feel I'm going to be the new Denham Elliott. I'm going to get cast in Marshall College or something. I want to be an English lecturer or something. So it's going to happen. It's happening in my head anyway.
It's like if there were a way that you could let him know that you didn't approach him, then you'd be the coolest guy ever.
Yeah, well, that's what I'd say. Stephen, I've met you so many times, but I didn't want to bother you. And I remember he did have an elderly guy with him as well. And I felt that actually it was that guy's night. So I didn't want to sort of break in and become a bit of a sort of groupie. But yeah, it was an extremely surreal moment being in the same room with the guy that directed Raiders and all of it.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it was. Totally. It was. I was very lucky as well, but I will dine out on that forever.
And you mentioned Marshall College. I do want to thank you. At some point in your book, I forget what the context is, but you refer to it as being in Connecticut. and Pete and I and some other weirdos out there have a hard time accepting that maybe the exteriors of Marshall College were filmed in San Francisco, but the place in the movie is in Connecticut.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me off then, because that's one of those, oh, did I get it right? Because you don't get time to check everything. Well, it was also filmed in Bushey in Watford, sort of north of London. Am I right? Was that one of the interiors, maybe?
Yeah,
because I remember driving past that and it looked familiar. And it was about a year later where I found out, that was one of the colleges. Okay, well, I'm glad.
Professor climbing out a window.
I'm glad I kept that accurate for the Indy fans.
Yeah. I appreciated it.
Well, one thing I'm interested about, like talking about Crystal Skull a little bit, and if there is an Indy 5, is I wonder how much these new movies color how we view the old movies. Like I've had a hard time seeing Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back quite the same way since the new movies came out. Like the prequels kind of did a number on me. And I'm curious if like Crystal Skull has changed the way we view Marion, which to me it has a little bit. And I wonder how much of a danger that is going into Indy 5.
Well, possibly the thing to do is to have him stranded on a works trip in Europe, and we don't see her. There is a way around it.
I think what they should do is they just say like Marion had mono in Crystal Skull, and that's what that whole for like a year she had mono, or
or just treat her like Indy's mom, like she's dead already. And like, oh yeah, she didn't tell me she was sick. That's so weird.
Oh God, no! Could it be like Rocky, where it's got a fold-away chair stuck in the tree and just brings it down and just has sort of Marion's grave scene? At which point Willie Scott says, "Come on, we're late. Get in the car." And it's like, oh, yeah, that's how you start Indy 5.
Well, I hope she comes out swinging in Indy 5, and then it kind of redeems. But
what's weird is it does when we talk about Marcus and now Marion here. It makes you question. I don't know. I know I'm going to get tomatoes thrown at me, but sometimes you go, do the people who are writing and directing these characters understand their own characters?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, of course we did the Marcus thing, but with Marion, and this maybe it's, I portend rough waters ahead. But yeah, I guess, I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Well, Marion is the balls. She is the testosterone of Raiders in a lot of, she perks him up. He's on the sub, or that moment he's not, or they're chasing, they're on the ship, and she's sort of tending to him, and right at the end she's chin up, literally she's chin up, I'll buy you a drink, and all of that had gone, and for no reason. You can't tell me motherhood softened her that much, because she's raised a knife wielding Marlon Brando wannabe. At least he's got some fight, and I just felt it vanished from her. Yes, maybe the interim years had been tough, but I just wanted her to slap someone or hit someone or just turn around and be. The thing about Marion was she was always slightly hungover, or I always felt she was always slightly getting through the next day, and I just felt she was too clean in Crystal Skull. Possibly.
And you know, when you see Marion, you kind of go, God, I kind of want to be like that.
Yeah.
That's it. And even though you find out, you're like, okay, she's not where she wants to be in life. She's stuck in, Nepal in this bar, and she's upset at her dad for dragging her all over the world. But you're like, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to do a little some of that Marion stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I'm either going to fight back a little bit, or I'm not going to take it anymore, or whatever it is. And then so when you see it kind of later, it hurts a little more.
Perhaps they will just slightly walk around that and it'll be fine. I doubt she'll be the second in command anyway in the story. I'm sure she'll bookend it, and it'll be something that he goes off and does without her.
It's weird because, I mean, in real life, a person who was stuck in Nepal in a bar and everything, she was that kind of person in her youth, she could conceivably grow up to be the Marion that you see dozens of years later in Crystal Skull. But that doesn't mean it's satisfying as a character.
That's why real life sucks.
Right. That's why you don't watch that person in a movie.
Right.
We know that person. It's your aunt.
Yeah, she became a soccer mom. Oh, well.
Well, I would love it, though. Imagine if Willie Scott turns up accidentally, and there's no sort of intent, but just having Karen Allen and Kate Capshaw just sparring about who loved him the most in the past, and one of them was married to him, and but are you happy? Is he happy? He doesn't look happy. That I think almost the film could facilitate that without then having Ghost Elsa, or we don't want to sort of go down that path too much, or Ghost Kate Blanchett, and then it becomes some horrible sort of Beetlejuice reunion.
Although we've still got kind of the uncomfortable question of Short Round.
Oh, that's true.
Wow.
Where's he? He could come back satisfactorily.
Yeah.
I bet he will.
Let's think. How are they going to mess him up? He'll probably, really tall and thin.
Yeah, and not wearing a hat.
I'm just going through who else could be. There could be some Crystal. I mean, there could be Crystal Skull character. I really like Ray Winston's character. I think he's. I think he didn't make end credits though, so possibly not going to see him. Just going through it now. Yes, that's faux pas. Yeah, of course he dies at the end of it.
Well, we'll see what they do.
Yeah, I just hope it happens. I believe they were locked into Pinewood for a while to start shooting, but then it got pushed back. The great thing about Spielberg is he will get through a project. This is the guy that did sort of 2 Jurassic Parks and a Schindler's List within 3 or 4 years. He can power through. He's got this great way of planning and pre-visiting a film, so the work is done when the cameras roll. So I just hope it happens. I just feel just get the insurance for Harrison Ford. No flying, no doors, no ramps, no cars. We're getting limited here. But...
Well, this has been awesome, Mark. This is thank you so much for joining us.
No, I've appreciated it.
Incredible.
It's been good to chat with proper indie fans as well, not just the ones that say Temple of Doom's rubbish. Although you went quiet when I brought it up, I heard.
No, you're not.
No, some of us love it. Some of us love Temple of Doom.
I think I love Temple of Doom. I have loved Temple of Doom. I don't recommend going through any of your favorite movies 1 minute at a time, because it'll wreak havoc with your understanding of them and your appreciation of them.
Oh God,
I had a hard time coming through Temple of Doom, but I do think I love that movie. Yeah,
well, at least it's one of the shorter ones, isn't it? Or is Raiders the shortest?
Oh, we should know that.
I think Raiders is the short one. Yeah, I think it's the shortest.
Oh, I love Temple of Doom because I love as I say, I was too young to see Raiders, but I remember that summer release, 84. I remember queuing an old cinema that's no longer there. And also remember that it was all one of the greatest things that happened to Temple of Doom, particularly I think maybe in Britain, there was quite a controversy about its violence and gore. And so suddenly, wow, it was like our Jaws, going to see Temple of Doom because we knew it was a bloody film and our parents would let us or they'd come with us. And I think it's one of perhaps the first graphic film I saw. It's not that graphic in hindsight, but at the time it was, because that and Ghostbusters and Gremlins were the only sort of big releases I'd seen apart from Bond.
It's when you see things at that age, we've said it over and over again, but you get locked in at a certain developing moment in your life, and these movies come in, and you can never. Those are your movies.
Indeed,
you can't shake it.
Yep.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you online and where they can find your book, Watching Skies.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm on Twitter, Mark O'Connell, but the O is a 0 because someone else got there first. Facebook has a great Watching Skies page. Please come and find us there. I ping about. There's a lot of Temple of Doom stuff going on at the moment there. So I'm on Facebook. My web page is markoconnell.co.uk. So there's a lot more about me and my influences and where I'm coming from, and mention of Watching Skies and the Bond book, Catching Bullets, and I'm on Instagram as well. So I'm hanging out in all the usual Marshall College social media corridors. You just need to find the right one. But hashtag Watching Skies, that's a good start as well.
And it's an excellent book for anybody who either was alive at that time in the early 80s and getting all these movies, or you've come to love them since then. This is your thing. It's everything from Jaws to Close Encounters, E.T., Superman, Raiders, Star Wars, everything that mattered to us, to this generation.
Pleasure, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And if you want to find more of us, we are still technically on hiatus, but we are working on our Crystal Skull season. But in the meantime, if you want to hear us talking about some of the movies we've been talking about today, like Jaws and E.T. and Superman and other Spielberg
Close
stuff,
Encounters.
please check us out over at patreon.com/Indiana Jones Minute. And if you support the show over there, you can get access to our extensive conversations about those and other indie things. In the meantime, please stay subscribed, rate us and review us over at iTunes and any other place you get your podcasts. And we will be back eventually on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Jones.
All I can see is Denim Elliott with his boss-eyed thing with the gun. That's my image for the night now.